A+SocialStudies production. It's me, Mr. Allard, bringing you the first English colonies of Jamestown and Roanoke via a PowerPoint presentation. While you're viewing this presentation, please make sure you have your blue sheet with you. Make sure you're answering those questions again in full and complete sentences. Make sure you're using the material from the PowerPoint to help you create those sentences. And also on the back, you're going to have a nice little ticket to group 3, 2, 1. We'll go over that at the end of the presentation. Alright, if you are ready, let's get going. Alright, here we go. Let's look at Jamestown first. How did the English wind up claiming the Jamestown colony? Well, it all started back in 1497 when John Cabot explored and claimed land for English in North America. What happened after that is England realized they had a lot of land over there and they could possibly make some money off of it, so they allowed the Virginia Company, was given rights to create colonies in the English territories. The Virginia Company had to pay England, people in the colonies had to pay the Virginia Company. Everybody was trying to make some money. In 1607, nearly 100, or over 100 years actually, from Cabot's first voyage to the Americas, the Jamestown settlers reached Jamestown and began to settle it. That begs the question, what was life like in Jamestown? First of all, it was difficult. Jamestown was not an area that was conducive to people living in the 1600s. It was basically a swamp. They landed there during the summer. There was lots of mosquitoes and diseases. The water wasn't very drinkable because it was a mix of salt water. It was very stagnant, which meant it did not move, so people were getting very sick. John Smith, who was their leader, was trying to get things going in Jamestown and was doing so with a little bit of success. There were some strained relations with the natives, but they were starting to get farms and things like that created. But he had to return to England. While he was gone, leadership was gone. Most of the colonists decided, we're not going to build houses, we're not going to build farms, we're going to look for gold, and it didn't work out well for them. The summer of 1609 to 1610 is called the starving time in Jamestown, and it was a very difficult time period. We're going to be talking about what was going on during the starving time in Jamestown later on next week. But during this winter, only 60 colonists out of the nearly 500 who originated in Jamestown survived due to starvation and the cold and just not being ready for it. It was not a good time to be living in Jamestown. As I mentioned earlier, the relations with Jamestown were not very good with the Native Americans. As we saw in the previous slide, the Jamestown settlement was basically surrounded by 8-foot-high thick log walls. That was a sign that people weren't getting along. We're trying to protect ourselves. There was a threat of violence from both sides. Probably the biggest example of how relations were is during that starving time when Jamestown was losing so many people, the Native Americans simply refused to trade with them. A lot of that had to do with how the Jamestown settlers arrived. They didn't know the traditions of the natives, and the natives felt that they weren't, Jamestown settlers were not taking good care of the land, were not being good people, and it really strained their relations. Relations improved when a guy named John Rolfe kind of took over and started leading the colony. Out of a show of respect, he asked the Powhatan tribe, who was the big tribe in the Jamestown area, he asked their chief if he could marry their daughter Pocahontas, who I'm sure you've heard of from the movie. We'll be talking about her a little bit later on and kind of discussing whether or not the movie is very true. But that really helped improve relations, and Rolfe kind of got Jamestown going as far as a profitable colony. Roanoke Island was much farther south than Jamestown. It was also created before Jamestown. Sir Walter Raleigh had explored and claimed land near North Carolina for England. An unsuccessful attempt was tried to make a colony near Roanoke Island before Raleigh went. He tried again and really wanted to make a colony. He brought men, women, and children with him, not just soldiers, not just men to kind of create things, but his real goal is to create a colony there, to be able to farm, to be able to grow cash crops, and be able to make a profitable colony. Life on Roanoke was, well, we actually don't know a whole heck of a lot about it. We know that the group arrived too late to plant crops. They kind of arrived in late August, early September. But they did have pretty good relations with the natives. They were able to trade with them. Um, there were some people who largely wanted to find gold, but there was a good mix of people there that also wanted to set a colony. Supplies ran low, and their leader, John White, goes back to England to get supplies. But due to a war that broke out during that time period, White did not return for 3 full years. He left and did not come. Now, this is a time before, cell phones, mail service, so they had no idea whether or not he was coming back. He had no idea what was going on back at Roanoke Island. This led to some issues on the island for sure. What were the relations like with Native Americans on Roanoke Island? They were very good. People were trading partners. They relied on each other a little bit. The natives were getting good products, and because the colonists hadn't arrived early enough to plant food, they had to rely on the Native Americans living in Roanoke Island for food, and the relationships were really, really good. Many natives actually stayed with or lived near Roanoke Island on an island called, most of them lived on an island called Croatoan, which we'll talk about in a second. 3 years after White left England, he finally makes it back to Roanoke Island, and he discovered a bit of a mystery. There was no colonists there. All their homes were there, all their supplies were there, all their tools were there. Basically, everything was there as he left it, except for the people. The people had simply vanished. The only clue that he had was the word Croatoan, which was carved into a tree trunk near where the settlers were located. Tomorrow in class, we're going to talk a little bit about maybe we could figure out what happened um, at Roanoke Island. Alright, now it's time for your ticket to group. We're going to be working on another 3, 2, 1. Again, these answers are going to be in complete sentences. For the first one, you need to give me 3 reasons the English attempted to create the colonies at Jamestown and Roanoke. Next up, you got to give me 2 ways Jamestown and Roanoke were similar. Lastly, you got to give me 1 way Jamestown and Roanoke were different. You complete all those in complete sentences. You complete the front sheet. You will be ready for what we are going to do tomorrow. Alright, have a good one. See you in class tomorrow.